Okay. Now, next, we have a $20 million. We're proposing a $20 million maximum grant / principal forgiveness for regional projects where at least one of the entity must serve a disadvantaged community. So regional projects we're proposing right now is three or more water system. So a regional solution, regional projects, you can up the limit to $20 million. And the service connection limits go to 50 service connections per maximum regional project. So any question on this slide? I know this can be a little bit tricky. Yes, we have a question here.
So in the past, principal forgiveness projects had to meet certain qualifications. They had to meet certain green qualifications. Would that be true in these applications as well?
Thank you for the question. The requirements, I think I will be touching in the next few slides. But in terms of green,
Just
we don't,
wait for
we
the
don't
next
have
slides.
a green requirement.
No, but you
in terms of-
answer that when you get to the next slide.
Yeah. So I will, yes.
In terms of the 25,000 per service connection, is that installed service connection or is that the potential for service connection? Our district has 150 installed, thereabouts, and 270 lots at ultimate development. So what is the language regarding that?
So you have some 200 that are not quite service connection. It is in your service area, but the lot hasn't been developed. Correct. Or there's no house there. Right. You know, these challenging, interesting question, we're gonna write it down, get you the right answer, but I don't, you know, normally we deal with existing customer that you have.
Yeah, I would
So
agree with that. But obviously, do you have a suggestion?
Yeah.
Well,
Would you-
our suggestion would be to go with the with what it would be at ultimate build out.
And your logic for that, besides getting more money, obviously, is what?
Well, we have to plan for that.
Okay.
And we have to plan for to supply that much water. And the fact that we don't have the connections as yet doesn't mean that that hasn't been promised, at least implicitly, by being within the district.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing I, you know, is the drinking water SRF limit us to 10% growth. You know, it's one thing that SRF program do not pay for is growth. So I know this is, your situation is different in that you have the lot, it's kind of there already, no home on it. So do we consider that as growth potential or not, or is already there? So that's why it's something that we'll look at it, these specific cases. But because of the 10% limitation,
Dad, this is when we turn to our legal advice now.
Yeah. So
Actually, what Dad's saying is totally consistent with what the adopted policy for the drinking water SRF is. There's a category of ineligible costs, and that is we won't pay for facilities that are constructed primarily to serve future growth, though as Jim points out, that's, that's an interesting question when you have got lots that have been approved for that already. It's an interesting question as to whether that's as to how exactly or to what extent that constitutes future growth. And I don't think we have a very clear answer in the policy, though. It's certainly an easy answer would be to say, well, if it doesn't exist now, then that's future growth, and so it's not eligible. But sometimes the easiest answer is not always the correct answer.
Right. Thank you, Ann. That's a great question, though. I mean, I've done these talks a few times, and that hasn't come up. So if I have a prize, you would get it, but I'm not allowed to give any prize anymore. So, okay. Oh, we have more question. Yes.
Yeah, this question is related to the last bullet point where you mentioned the $20 million grant principal, up to $20 million grant principal forgiveness. And so it's a little bit related to my last question, which is you're talking about an entire area needs to be a disadvantaged community, and you just can't have pockets. Now, in this last bullet point, you're talking about a regional project where at least one entity is a disadvantaged community. So a regional project, in my situation, we're a municipal water provider, but we also provide water to a portion of the county, which is a disadvantaged community. And so I'm curious, based on the previous definition where you said you have to look at the entire service area, even if it goes beyond the urban growth boundary for the municipality, would that in fact not be considered eligible under this last bullet point? Because if we take the entire service area, which includes the county and the city, it's not disadvantaged based on your previous definition.
So is your, are you serving, to meet the definition of the regional solution here, are you one system though? Or is it separate system?
It's
You're
one,
serving
one system.
Right. So if it's one system, then you won't meet this definition of a regional solution.
What is the definition of regional?
Oh, the 3 or more water systems getting together to come up with a project that
Individual water systems.
Right, individual water systems. So, yeah, good question though. Thank you. Okay, so the financing package may comes in grants or forgiveness.
Dad, we have a
Yes,
question back here.
More question. Yes. Hi.
Hi, good morning. Okay, so I'm a little concerned, knowing the isolation of our Indian tribe and the fact of only having potential right now for 8 connections. The distance to a city-owned well that we could probably take off of is about a mile. Otherwise, to potable water is 13 miles. So groundwater, some people have come in and said, well, what you need to do is really think big and start selling water to all the farmers in the area. But just trying to stay within our Indian tribe, what kind of a solution, or are you saying the biggest system that we could look at is 200,000?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So the the specific question when it comes to Indian tribes, we will work with you individually. It's something that we have not done very often. So the solution it might be atypical. So I would encourage you to get in touch with our engineers, and we have to work on a solution. Because if your system, the closest you say is how many miles away? 1 mile to the nearest well and 12 miles to the nearest city. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be a...
So I'm not sure, what's the question though?
I believe that the best system for our area is just strictly improving and developing an autonomous groundwater system for that area, and possibly providing water to other agricultural areas. But we're in a very deep valley, and some of those are kind of not an easy solution. So we're a 1 mile long canyon with about 8 connections.
And I'm understanding what the situation, but what, are you asking a specific question now that relates to?
Well, I'm just concerned that when we're looking for a project, that the project would probably, I'm trying to look at what kind of funding is available for, we're so severely disadvantaged, and we're at the point right now where everybody's pumping so much groundwater, we don't have any water left.
So it sounds to me like you would fall under either the planning or, a construction potential project, but it doesn't sound like you would be a regional type project because of your distance. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have another question here.
I'm curious, where did you pull this $5 million bullet point to? Is that an arbitrary number, or is that something that was established? And how was that established?
The $5 million grant limit?
Yes.
You're asking?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you remember the first slide that I have, the drinking water SRF, we get about $83 million a year. And of that $83 million a year, we can give up to 30%.
So that,
And
excuse me
is
for
about
just a second. So that $5 million is a hard number. That's something that you can't surpass.
It's the one that we're proposing right now, because recognizing all the projects that we have, the demand out there, if you take the $25 million that federally that we can give out as grant limit, that's only 5 projects. See, but we're able to go from $3 to $5 million because of infusion, the Prop 1 money, the $260 million that can help the drinking water SRF, $25 million that we can give as forgiveness of principal. So from our experience, and that's what we recommend right now, to place the grant limit as $5 million, because as opposed to, so it's not, is it just some number that's arbitrary? We have right now $3 million and we go to 5. And as we go up on that number, is reduce the number of grant that's available for reduce the number of system projects that we can fund.
Dad,
So-
I'm going to jump in. Prop 1 has got a $5 million cap associated with construction grants. So that's definitely our cap. We could set a lower cap, but we could stick with our $3 million cap. But I think the notion is we're going to raise it for everybody.
So basically, if we've already got a project on the book and it's not $5 million, but say $7 million, then it's up to the district to come up with the financing for the additional $2 million?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Right, yeah, which I will touch on in a little bit. This is, okay, so the financing package comes in grant, forgiveness of principals, for economic, for severely disadvantaged and disadvantaged system, and economically distressed area, and also school. So we have a couple table that we're going to show that, and the local cost share will represent that in the table so you can see. And also, I think Jim just touches on, this is not all entirely 100% grant program. State revolving fund is a loan program. We can give up to a third of it as 30% as forgiveness of principal. And then the Prop 1 is also, there's loan available, very, very low interest loan, 1.663%. So loan is also available. So here's a table 1. So right now, if you are this is applied to both SRF and Prop 1 forgiveness of principal / grant criteria for public water system serving disadvantaged and severely disadvantaged water system. So if you're a disadvantaged water system, if you're DACT, and we have this where potentially how much money you receive, this table sort of help you. If your average residential water rate as a percentage of MHI, if you fall less than 1.5%, then we ask that you have to get your water. You were asking that you pay at least 1.5%. So get your water up there before you consider for forgiveness of principal or grant. So if you're between 1.5% and 2%, you get up to 65%. And the between 2 and 2.5%, you get 70. More than 2.5%, you got up to 80% forgiveness of principal. And the grant limit for planning and construction is still remain at $5 million for constructions and $500,000 for planning. And if you're severely disadvantaged, then you get 100%, up to 100% grant. So that's just kind of the proposal, how we are considering giving our grant.
If I could just
Yes.
jump in for a minute and go back to the growth question. I'd forgotten, and one of our engineers reminded me, thankfully, that we have actually got some criteria in the drinking water SRF policy that addresses the question of growth. It's in Appendix I to our drinking water SRF policy, and there's a category about reasonable amount of growth, and it states that reasonable amount of growth, whatever's expected to occur over a 20-year period, and that projection needs to come from an independent source like a regional council of governments or the Department of Finance.
Great, thank you. And so, okay, so the second table, we're looking at, this represents the economic distress definition. So if you are, if you remember, there was 3 bullets. I mean, you got to meet 3 plus 1 of the below to meet the economically distressed. And if you meet all those, obviously, the first average residential water rate as a percentage of MHI, you would already met that because that was one of the 3 bullets on top. You have to be, you have to meet that. But then if you fall in between, the 1.5% and 2%, then you get 65%. Between 2 and 2.5, you get 70, and more than 2.5%, you get the up to 80% as forgiveness of principal. So, yeah. So the economically distressed, when you talk about financial hardship, that's the 1.5%. You got to be there to be considered financial hardship. Okay. So and then there is a Prop 1 local cost share. So local cost share is basically the rest of the money that you are not able to receive as grant or forgiveness of principal. Okay, and we have a couple tables to show that. The local cost share can be an SRF loan, can be a Prop 1 loan, or any non-state funding. Okay, so this is again, if you're disadvantaged and if you notice, this is just an inverse of the how much loan that you can how much grant you can receive. So so this is the breakdown for the local cost share. In other words, the loan that you potentially have to borrow. And they say a minimum because if you have other limits that if you don't get the maximum 80%, for instance, from the other table, you only get 70, then over here it has to be 30, and so forth. So, of course, this doesn't apply. So, well, I stand corrected. The severely disadvantaged water system, even though we show that is not applicable, it's not true. Because if you're a severely disadvantaged water system, which you will see as an example that we're going to show, and that example, your project is more than $5 million. Okay, you have more than $5 million, and you already hit that cap. So what do you do with the other $2 million? I think a gentleman asked earlier, that $2 million could potentially come as a local cost share, and that can be an SRF loan. It can be an SRF loan, but it can be a Proposition 1 loan. Okay. So that $2 million that you went over the $5 million, we can potentially give you as a Proposition 1 loan, 0% interest. So that's part of the financing package. Or if you're in the situation where you're limited by the service connection, as an example that we're going to show, then whatever you have the overage, we can finance that as a 0% interest loan under Proposition 1. Okay. We cannot do that under Safe Drinking Water SRF because of our statute. It doesn't allow us to do that right now. But we have that option of giving you loan under 0% interest loan for severely disadvantaged folks that went over the cap that we have. Okay, so this table is we're not applicable. It's we'll make that correction. Okay, so the economically distressed, conversely, they also could receive the local cost share, the minimum cost share here. If you're between 1.5% and 2%, you can. The minimum local cost share is 35%, 30% for between 2 and 2.5%, and 20% if you're over minimum if you're over 2.5%. In other words, you can get up to the 80% principal forgiveness. Then 20% is what you potentially have to. You don't have to. If you have money somewhere else, then that's fine. But if you need, we can loan you. Okay, any question on this? I know it's a lot to take in, but okay. So here is the loan package. Loan is available at 1.663%, and we take the 50% of the general obligation bond rate of the previous year. So this number change every year. So January comes, we get a new rate. So this is just for now. If you receive financing package from us, this is what you can expect, 1.663%. It's very low. The term for planning loan is payback is 5 years, and 20 years for construction loan, non-disadvantage. I think we're working closely with EPA to hope to change that terms to 30 years in the future, but not right now. But there is 30-year terms available for disadvantaged and severely disadvantaged water system construction loan. So if you're the example I was, somebody mentioned, and you see if you're hitting your limit, 5 million, and you still have a couple million that you need, and you're severely disadvantaged, you can get 0% interest loan from us up to 30 years. So that's very low. Okay. Okay, so there's 0% interest loan here that I think this is just expansion of what I was mentioning. You have to be classified as a small community water system. Yeah, this is a change here, by the way. I have to mention under the drinking water SRF policy, we make the change in that if you're severely disadvantaged or you're disadvantaged water system, you have to be a small water systems, or and your average water rate have to meet or exceed our target consumer rate. That's 1.5%. So those are a couple things that you. So in other words, if you're a large water system that you're disadvantaged, you are not eligible for a 0% interest loan from us. Your loan will come with the 1.6% interest. Okay, so here's an example of one I think you can appreciate. Okay, ABC water system have a service area of 150 service connections. The MHI is $48,000, and their water rate is at $81 per month. Okay, so the proposed project cost is $6 million. So you want to figure out how much grant, principal forgiveness, loan they're eligible for. The first thing is you compare to their disadvantage. Are they disadvantaged? Yes, they are. Okay, so that's good. Step 2, are they severely? No, they're not. So they fall kind of in between the disadvantage and not the severely. Okay, then step 3, you want to look at what is the water rate as a percentage of the median household income. So you look at the monthly water bill, the $81 a month, put it in there, and there times 12 months divided by the 48,000 MHI for the service area, you come up with 2%. So you say 2% of the income goes toward water. So they go in that little over 2%. So step 4, then you go to the affordability charge here, and you see that 4%, 2% get them in up to 70% of the projects you can get as a grant of forgiveness or principal. So, okay, so 70% of $6 million projects is $4.2 million. Okay, so one more check you got to do is that 25 service connection limit. So 25 service connection times 150 service connection give you $3.75 million. So they're not eligible for $4.2 million grant. They're eligible for $3.75 million grant. So that means the remaining $2.25 million is what we call local cost share. It can comes in SRF loan or the Prop 1 loan or any other funding that you've received, non-state grant funding from other sources. So any question on this? You see how the 150 service connection play a role? Remember I mentioned earlier 200? If you're under 200, if you're over 200, it doesn't matter. You don't have to do that check because 200 times the 25,000 per service connection get you to 5 million already. So that's your limit. But this one, it applies, so we sort of use the example so you can see Okay. Yes, question.
I'd just like to clarify then, so if you're not a DAC, you're not an SDAC, the only thing that you can qualify for is the loan portion of the program, correct?
Almost correct. Okay. Now, the reason I say almost correct is because you have the economically distressed portion, right? If we go back, I'm going to jump back quite a bit here.
Okay, and
yeah, this slide here.
Yeah.
If I'm 82%, I'm not a DAC,
okay.
right? So you meet this, and you could. That's why I mean by almost correct. But in general, you're right. It's yeah.
Okay, so then in that situation, 20 million, is there, let me ask it this way, is there a max to the loan amount?
No.
No,
That-
Well,
no cap?
The
Well,
cap
it's
to the
the-
loan amount is what you can afford to repay.
Exactly.
I like that answer. And the max term is 20 years for those water utilities, is that correct? 20-year loan?
That is correct. If you're not disadvantaged.
With the
small.
caveat that if the useful life is not 20
Right.
years, then it's going to be whatever the useful life is.
Okay, thank you.
And that, isn't
Yes.
it true too, that if you're a large community and you're going to be part of a consolidation project with a disadvantaged community, you would be available or could access grant funds to do that project?
That is very true, because if you look at the regional consolidation that we're proposing right now, only one of the three system has to serve a disadvantaged community. So if you're the other two, one of the other two, you don't have to be, and you could potentially receive, that regional project could be eligible for up to $20 million. So, good point,
And
Jim.
if I could jump into, so I've got great staff that got me back information concerning the American Community data for financial. It's annual that they collect the data. It's usually in December. And just so everyone knows, for instance, the 2010 census data actually didn't collect any income data. So that's why we're using that as we move forward. And they do surveys. It's basically a fraction or a percentage of each of the areas. So if there's any question on that type of a data, we also have the ability to do income surveys for that community. But that's what we use. We can do it, right? But we have limited funds to do that, so we would look at the need to do it for that community. If the information, if we felt it was either somewhat sketchy or whatever, that there was a question on the data, or it was really close as far as the numbers.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Jim, for that. I think it's when it comes to, you see how if your community is close to the MHI, yes, you can contact us and we can see if we can put you on the list to be considered for income survey. But if you want to help yourself, and you could do the income survey yourself, because it is cost, but it's if it's that important to you, I think it's we could do it, but understand that there's a lot of demand for that. So Jim is correct. We have very limited funding for that. So you may be on the waiting list for a little bit. So thank you.
And economically distressed areas under population, less than 20,000 persons, is that the population of the community water system or the service territory or the community? Because I'm just thinking there could be a community that's served by multiple water systems.
Well,
Service area.
yeah. Thank you, Jim. Yes, we have more question.
Do you have a do you have a website that we can get the MHI data off of?
Yeah, we'll try to get that. I know my staff, they use the, it is available, so I'll find out and we'll either get a link on our website or whatever for the America and community data.
Hi, this is Yun Chun Lei. I just want to add on to what Dak mentioned about the income survey. Where if you think you want to, an income survey would help to show that you are a disadvantaged community. We do have certain guidelines on how an income survey needs to be carried out in order for it to be acceptable. And our point of contact would be George Fajela. The information is on the Office of Water Solution for Sustainable Solution website, but we can send out or just contact one of the project manager that you're working with if you're thinking of doing an income survey.
Thank you so much, Wayne. And we could we write George Fitzgerald's email and contact information on the board here? Yeah, we'll do that. Okay, so so right now everything that I'm presenting to you is the proposal. Okay, so the written comments will be receiving until June 30th, noon, June 30th. So you have any comments on the proposal, please do that. And here's an email you can email your written proposal to. And we'll address comment in your comments. We are looking to finalize the drinking water SRF IUP and Prop 1 and put it in front of our board in early August, early August for adoption. And as soon as that's adopted, we're hoping that financing agreement can be issued right away. So how do we do that? You got to apply. And so we have systems that apply already using our fast application process. So we can issue financing agreement regarding Prop 1. When I say regarding Prop 1 and SRF, you know, the $5 million limit and all that, that is still not official until the board adopted. So if you need a financing agreement prior to that, under SRF, it's only a $3 million grant limit now. And here's our application process. I mean, it's been accepted continuous basis. You know, no longer you have to wait. You know, we are waiting on you. We're waiting on your application. Okay, so please apply. Yeah, so if there's, yes, question.
So our district has been working with USDA on a loan application as well. Would you comment on the pros and cons of working with them versus working with you?
Well, I think it's important to, you know, if you need the funding, you just apply for both. It's very important. I mean, there is, I mean, there's no con to applying for both. I mean, it's, you just, you know, you
Oh,
let us know.
In terms of probability of success, more likely with them or more likely with you?
Well, I can't comment on what their process is, but you certainly I know the probability, based on what we presented to you here, of course, this is not official until it's adopted. So I would encourage you to apply. It's,
I would agree with that. This is Jim Monaghan. What I would say is we multi-fund, co-fund with USDA, with other state agencies. So we would encourage anyone and everyone here to access all the funds that you can for your projects. These are expensive projects. You're not limited by applying for the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, Prop 1 funds. We're not going to hold you up. This isn't like we're a country where you can't have dual citizenship or something like that. So we encourage you to apply anywhere and everywhere. IRWM, DWR, they have funds. iBank is another source of funding. We partner with a number of state and federal agencies as far as funding projects. So we definitely are not going to comment on what your likelihood is going to be. We would encourage you to seek out funding wherever you can.
Apply for, do what's best for your system, please. Okay, so when there's some tutorial links and things like that on the FAST application process. And again, I want to remind you, is it better to get started and apply and submit a general package and kind of, while you wait for other things? Yeah, but with the limited staff that we have, and if this thing come in huge volumes, then we obviously will be looking at the application that are most complete. In other words, that submit all 4 packages. So do your best, work with your consultant, and we also have technical assistance through George Fichella that for a small water system that can seek help in filling out the application or completing the application. So I think that if you go on our website, we have the Office for Water Sustainable Solution. There is a link there to get you the technical assistance that's available to help you complete your application. Okay. And here's my information, and you've already met Wayne Trinley, who spoke earlier, Brian Kinney, who's sitting up here, and if you meet our project managers here, please get their business card, and if you just, even if they don't have it, it's all our email information is the same. It's just the first name dot last name, and the rest is the same at waterboards.ca.gov. So please make best use of these opportunities and meet our engineers, our project managers, and so right now I'm going to check on the time. We are, also part of your package, we have a survey form. So this is, we're talking about, there is the Office of Sustainable Water Solution. They have a newsletter, and you can see George Fichella pictures is right there and his contact. So you're welcome to get this. We only have 5 copies, so you can, for those of you that need it, please take it, but we also have this on our website. Okay. But this is what George looked like. Very nice guy. Right there. Income survey, technical assistance. I have 5. So, and one other thing I have here is also the public workshop survey. If you can please take a moment, fill this out before you leave. And this is not the end. Of course, we at the end of the presentation, but we're going to take a break, 15 minutes break, and then we'll be back for more question and answer. Okay. So right now I have 11:03, so we'll take 15 minutes. We'll be back at 11:20. That's okay with everyone. It's time to start. Oh, before we go, we have we'll take one more question.
Not to completely change things up, but maybe people want to go, so, I don't know, can we just keep going, and then that way
Oh,
we
we
can
could.
just, get out of here early? Is that okay?
Sure.
Excellent.
Yes. For those of you who need a break, feel free to stand up, stretch, and come back for question. But okay, so any question from anyone?
I do. Thank you. So so the question I had was, and I was gonna ask it earlier, the 25,000 per connection maximum, how long has that been in place? I'm not familiar with that. I always looked at it just as a big pot of money versus the way it
Yeah.
is now. Or maybe it's always been there. Just a question on that.
No, it hasn't been there. That is new. That is something we propose, but currently we don't have a service connection limit. There was one. We used to have a 10,000 per service connection limit, but that only lasted for a couple years way back when the first drinking water SRF was originated. We had a 10,000 per service connection limit. But so this is new, being proposed. Please comment on it.
Well, actually, my question then on that, since it's news, I mean, in looking at the formula and the case that you actually had or scenario, I mean, it significantly reduced down what would be available to a community based on the service connection, not so much based on the percentage of the rate that they're paying. So is there a reason for that? It's a question. Is there a reason? Are you trying to? Is it arbitrary, or is there a specific reason why it's just like 25,000? That's the top we can do. We'll have a comment on it, but.
Yeah. No, good question. We, as you understand, we've been dealing with the system, and to be a good steward of the money, we thought we put the limit in there so that system with 1, 2, 3 service connection don't come in and take all the money, essentially.
Well, and
So-
Omar, I'd say it's not necessarily taking all the money, but it is looking at economies of scale. If you have a system, as Dat says, with only 10, or well, it wouldn't be 10, but 20 service connections, and you take millions and millions of dollars for 20 service connections, we do question whether that is the best use for statewide money. So we're trying to find communities that we really can help and be sustainable. And yeah, we're open to suggestions on the number, but a price per connection did make sense to us, but we're certainly open to hear what other people think about that.
Great. Okay, then that clarifies things for me. Now, I'm going to mention 2 more things, and then I'll hand off the mic. And mainly because, since we do work with really small systems, right? I mean, goes back to the same thing, the most vulnerable communities. So we continue to feel that that's the most important thing, especially since we do have some of the biggest, the largest amount of resource we've had in a long time, specifically for these communities. And I'll mention 2 more things. We appreciate all the work that went into the intended use plan and the comments thus far. Like just told the IUP and the information in there, and just mentioning that it's great that you're mentioning O&M and the need for that, and also mentioning the fact that we need to have technical assistance, and those things need to tee up those communities that are most vulnerable, so we continue to feel that that's important. But what I will say that in our comments, making sure that the priority is not just ready to proceed, so throughout, we saw sprinkled throughout the intended use plan, kind of just preference for ready to proceed with respect to projects. And I know because there's a lot of need out there. So just that's something that I wanted to mention. And lastly, I'll mention, because I'm going to put this into our comments as well, some focus and emphasis on schools and the need for addressing contamination in schools and schools that actually lack safe drinking water. I know that that's mentioned in the IUP at least a little bit with respect to a system that has their own individual system that's actually serving a school, or and so that's something that we want to see some more emphasis on, other than what's in there now in the intended use plan.
Great. Thank you.
So I have a question and a comment. One, I work with a lot of communities that are interested in this funding, and they would like to potentially do something on a regional level, but they don't always know who else in their region is interested in pursuing projects. Would you be open to sharing the list of people who are at the workshop? I know that other workshops that I go to do this to help facilitate those kinds of conversations. It's very helpful in sharing information and whatnot. So that would be my question, is if you would be willing and open to that. And I will say, great, thanks. I will say that having done a lot of these applications, because I have a grant writing firm and I work with a lot of different people, the MHI is a constant issue. We find in some of these rural areas that the MHI is incorrect. It doesn't accurately represent the reality on the ground. And then for those communities to try to pay for their own survey, which the last quote we got not that long ago was about $15,000 to do a survey, was prohibitive for them. If there's any way to beef up those resources, because so many of these communities need these funds and just can't get beyond the MHI issues. So just some feedback for you, that if there's any way to beef that up and make more resources available, or allow for that to be more accurate based on the community's own knowledge of its service area. Just saying.
So we can answer both those. I know you heard the answer to the first one, but so everyone heard it. It's yes. And concerning the resources, what we were talking about with the resources previously were coming from federal funds. Prop 1 also has technical assistance resources, significant amount, to be honest. We are working through a contracting process for that. We plan on that being one of the resources that are available. So yes, there will be more resources available to do that.
Question.
I was interested. I was interested to know how small communities link up with regional projects. For example, if you are a tribe out there trying to organize your own water and wastewater treatment system, how do you get to know there's a regional project within that you could link up for consolidation or these other, whatever you mentioned?
Well, talk to your neighbor, right? So I know this is very difficult, but I think with a comment here, we're gonna try to make the information as publicly available in terms of water systems, and like who's in your areas and so forth. So that kind of information is available, so you could. But one thing for sure is when you can work with our technical assistance folks, and they do have access to our knowledge to system nearby, because I understand it is very difficult sometimes to come up with that. I think community water center do a great job in knowing like who's in the Central Valley and so forth. So I would definitely get in touch with groups like Community Water Center. We have representative here, and also our technical assistant group that could help you.
Well, thank you very much. And the last one is what this lady has asked, actually. The income survey seems to be one of the major documents that you require for a tribe or a regional body to move forward. So if it is prohibitive to get one in place, then how do small communities who have not don't even have resources going to overcome this requirement.
Let me jump in there on that. I don't think it's prohibitive. I think what I was hearing is in some cases, the data might not be as reliable. Understand that if the data shows that you're severely disadvantaged, there's not any work that needs to be done then. We already have that data. It's when you're kind of either on the bubble or close that it's an issue. And I think in a large part of the cases, that's not an issue statewide. But there are cases, and I understand that problem. So.
We have I think we're all kind of uniquely the same. You know, we're talking about money here, and our situation is such that we have a concentration. Well, first of all, we're already considered severely disadvantaged, I think is the term. And we've identified the project as exceeding the 5.5. And what I'm wondering is, would a legitimate strategy be to put this project in 2 phases? Because even a 0% loan in a district as small as we are may be a challenge, or it would be a challenge. So the question that I have is could we possibly put our project into 2 phases? One, to get the funding so that we can take care of the bulk of the hookups, and then come at you later to try and pick up those satellite households.
Well,
I'm going to jump in and answer that question. There is a limit of $5 million per project, and historically, the board has limited that to on a community basis, and I guess to deviate from that historical expectation, we'd need to consider that.
And I'm not contradicting my attorney. I never do that. What I would tell you to do is submit the project as it is. The whole project, what the community needs. Let us work. As Dad said, our whole purpose here is to finance these projects and to improve water quality. Yes, some of it might have to be in some form of loan or grant, but a lot of times we're able to also help you work with other state agencies, other federal agencies to build a complete package here. The critical thing usually isn't the capital cost in building it. It's for a severely disadvantaged community is operation and maintenance as you move forward. And that's usually where the big stumbling block is. So I would say submit the whole package together. Know that our goal is to build these projects that are going to be sustainable. The problem we're going to have is if they're not sustainable, we really can't build that project.
Excuse me, we're shovel ready. We've been ready since last October. Isaac might want to weigh in on this, but all these things that you're saying that we need to do, they've been done, and we're basically at the starting blocks right now. What I'm wondering is that we were under the impression that we may get the entire project funded, and it appears as if that's not going to be the case. So that's the reason for my question as far as putting this into a 2-phase project at this point. We're ready to go. All we need is a funding agreement.
So you've submitted an application to us?
Everything's done.
Do you know about this one, Dad?
do you have an application into the FAST application, Jackson Valley? Yeah. So Marcus, is this your project? You wanna? Yeah, because if your project is, and this is where if there's not other funding sources that complement the max limit, then certainly, that is something that our staff can look at, reducing the scope of your project so that you can stay, and still take care of that is certainly an option for your projects if you are not able to take on the loan to fund it in whole, reducing the scope of the project is always an option. So
What I'm asking though is, in essence, is that we have an identified issue, okay, in an area, and we can serve with the 5.5, we can get to the majority of the households, which is substantial. It's over 200 hookups, but there are outlining households that are within the region that qualify, and therein lies the additional funding necessity.
Yeah, are we talking about a meter projects or what? I don't know the specific, but it's because the reason I ask is if you're in the health-based category, the ABC, and you have a problem you have to solve, is your project reducing it to not take care of the outlying areas? Is that something that puts you back in compliance? If the answer is no, and we're building a project that's only half solved the problem, see, then that's something we have to work on.
Maybe Isaac and
Almost definitely, yes. We'll, yeah. So I
think I'm hearing you say
It's-
no, you wouldn't want to put this into two phases.
The reason we're stating that, as Ann said, you can't put it into two phases so that you can get two $5 million grant pots of money. That's just not available through this source. If, there's projects that are out there that do make sense to be, a phased project for whatever reason, size and so forth, that's fine, but still the access to the money is limited to the project.
almost definitely.
We've got a USDA loan, right, a grant right now. We've used a portion of it. So we're aware of it, and we have applied for other funding sources. Sorry.
Yes, question.
I have a question, completely different direction. And I would just like your feedback if this is even a possibility, and then we will write it up in our comments. But we have a very small, very disadvantaged community that took an SRF loan a couple of years ago, and they are having a hard time repaying it right now. I can't remember the exact percentage, but their rates are being subsidized somewhere around 40%, and it still doesn't even get them to a reasonable rate for a water service there. So they've asked me, can we suggest that Prop 1 be retroactive and be applied to an existing SRF loan to bring that rate down for this severely disadvantaged community? So are there federal prohibitions on that? I couldn't find anything in Prop 1 that spoke specifically to new construction, but that's my question for you.
So I would say that's going to be a board decision as far as what the time frame. The board generally has acted for new projects moving forward. They have allowed in different programs, I'll talk specifically about clean water, where they've allowed either economically distressed or disadvantaged communities to refinance previous debt to build a new project to make that affordable. The board has also, we've had some communities that have had economic distress where the board has allowed some restructuring of financial packages. So they're on an individual case basis. Do you want to say anything more, Ann?
I'm just going to agree with what Jim said about the focus being on new construction. I think that it's fairly clear from the language in Prop 1 that it's meant for construction. In order to use general obligation bond funds, you have to hew pretty closely to what the voters have authorized, and if they had authorized refinancing of existing obligations, then I'd say, oh yeah, sure, but I'm not seeing that.
So any, and we will be talking specifically in your case, obviously, Jackson Valley, yes. Yeah, I mean, I just want to expand on that. That's always one of the challenge is when we open up our categories, you know, open up where everybody is now can come in. So we were talking about, as much as I encourage you on the being proactive on projects that are in the lower categories, where you're being proactive, so you don't really have a compliance order or something that you're trying to solve in the A through C categories, but you're down here at the D and F. You know, those projects in general, pick water meter, for instance, as a project. That's something that you can certainly, the scope of the project can be at any size, right? You can reduce it to certain, you know, because this is it. If your grant limit is hit you at the $5 million and you don't want it to do the entire, you just wanted to do, you call this your phase one, this is your project. That's it, because you don't have to comply until 2020. So you're just going to do this now. We're not in position to say, well, you're not solving the entire problem, because it's, you know, everybody need to be meter. Well, there's not a compliance order sitting over where we say you have to solve it. So those kind of projects, you have more leeway on the scope of the projects where you can reduce it. But if you're solving a health-based category problem up here and you're putting together a project to solve most of it and not all of it, and you know, these are very specific cases where it's hard for us to participate in that project that say, well, we're just going to pay for part of it. We can pay for part of it, but we need to know you are finding money somewhere else to construct the whole thing if you don't want to take our loan. So those are more tricky, so I think it deserves a lot more attention. And it's because it's so specific that we can't really, you know, discuss it here, but certainly we'll be working with you on a solution, because that's what we're all about, bringing solution, not just the money, but a real solution to you. The survey, if you could take it, you can fill it out. This will really help me do a better presentation at the next time. So, and I'll be around, so for any of you that wanted to talk individually. Thank you so much. Bye.